Assalamu alaikum. So this is our second video about crime rates in Pakistan. Well, actually I'll be looking at cities in Pakistan versus cities abroad. I'm taking the numbers from Numbeo and of course data about third world countries including Pakistan may not be fully reliable, and there's really no method to 100% get reliable data that will reflect the complete reality. But the way this works is at numbeo.com, visitors of the website can answer a number of questions, and they try to filter any questions or entries that might look like spamming or people are trying to control the survey, and data that is up to 3 years old is used so that it's more current data. It's not like data 10, 20 years back is also reflected. It's for the past 3 years, 36 months. And they rate the crime as being very low if it's less than 20, the crime rate. And if low is between 20 to 40, moderate 40 to 60, high 60 to 80, and above 80 then it's high. So let's look at start with the crime rate in London versus crime rate in Karachi. So if we look here, the crime rate in Karachi is slightly worse than London, 53 versus 54.5. And if we look at the data here, in some ways actually London is worse off than Karachi. And what I think is interesting, worries about being subject to a physical attack because of your skin color, ethnic origin, gender or religion. It's actually moderate in London and low in Karachi. Worries about being insulted, low in Karachi and moderate in London. But overall, London is slightly better than Karachi. I think this would probably be a great surprise for many people. The perception we have of Karachi is that it's very, very violent and you can hardly walk around there and without being attacked or being subject to a crime. But from this data, it doesn't really seem like that. Of course, with all those uncertainties about any data, but this is interesting. These are people that have visited this website and given their experience in those countries. If we take a problem violent crime as assault and armed robbery, well, it's high in Pakistan, in Karachi at 64 against being moderate in London. And corruption and bribery, which is hardly a surprise to anyone, is very high in Karachi as compared to London. But overall, we are looking more or less at the same rate of crime as compared to London. Karachi and London are quite similar. So then let's look at Islamabad versus London. Well, Islamabad actually comes out much better than London, nearly half the crime rate as in London. And if you look down here, most of the factors that they've surveyed here in Islamabad, they're low or very low. Corruption is higher than in London, but other than that, nearly every parameter says low or very low, apart from corruption. In London, the trend is more moderate rather than low or very low, apart from bribery and corruption being much better than Pakistan, again than Islamabad. Again, maybe that's not a very great surprise. But the interesting thing is, I think most Pakistanis living abroad would probably have the perception that by every means, every aspect, London would be better than Islamabad, but it doesn't seem to be the case here. Let's then compare Copenhagen and Islamabad. Copenhagen comes out slightly better, not a great difference, but slightly better. Islamabad, again, corruption, we are not very surprised about that. But the other factors, we are quite close to one another, not a great difference, but there are certain areas where Copenhagen is still better off, and the overall trend is more or less similar between Copenhagen and Islamabad. If we take out bribery, I think we got Copenhagen and Islamabad at the same level. But of course, bribery is happening and we can't really run away from that. It's there. If we compare Oslo and Islamabad, Oslo is actually slightly worse off than Islamabad. And if you look here, which is kind of a surprise to myself, crime increasing in the past 3 years. It goes quite high, while the surveyors, the visitors of this website for Pakistan, it says low. And but Oslo overall is worse off than Islamabad, but not a great difference between these two countries, these two cities. So I hope this gave you something to think about. Karachi is not much worse than London, apart from bribery and violent crime, and even there it's not much worse. It is worse than London. Islamabad is more safe than London, and Islamabad is nearly as safe as Copenhagen, and it's actually better than London and Oslo. I think that's quite interesting. I don't think that's our perception normally. And we can do the same exercise with Lahore, and I suggest you do it with Numbeo.com, visitors to Lahore giving their reviews about how they felt the crime rate was, and I think you'll be quite surprised. I'm not sure Pakistan is as bad as we believe. Kehte hain bad se badnaam bura. I think that's the case with Pakistan, or in English, perception is everything. My experience from living in Pakistan since 2002 is that I travel around and I'm quite comfortable, and I don't really have safety at the back of my mind. My main concern about safety would be the traffic, because people don't really understand what traffic rules are. So that is my main safety concern, but otherwise it's not really at all something I consider when moving about in Pakistan for the past nearly 18-19 years. So I hope this gives you some food for thought, and you see Pakistan in a more balanced and more realistic light, inshallah. So of course these numbers are not perfect, no numbers will be perfect, but I do believe that they're much more perfect, they're much better than what anyone says that no, I know it's like that, or I believe it's like that. Comparing to that, I think these numbers are actually much more accurate than whatever people think or feel the situation is. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like the video, share it with your friends and family, subscribe to our channel, click the notification bell, and see you in the next video. Thank you.